World's Finest Teen Titans issue 3, Mark Waid writing with Emanuela Lupacchino on the art. So, this is Titans Con. We ended last issue with them all being excited. Well, except Robin, of course. Dick's not too thrilled about it, but they all go to Titans Con unannounced. The book opens with them saying how all the fans are going to freak out because they don't know we're coming. And basically this issue is Mark Waid making fun of conventions for like 2/3 of it.
Of like con culture.
Yeah.
Right?
It's basically people try to skip lines, and everyone like one of the first things that's said when they land is one of the speech bubbles from the crowd is, "Are they here for Saturday or Saturday and Sunday?"
They only have tickets to Saturday, or they only have tickets to Sunday, something along those lines.
Yep.
But yeah. So the whole con culture thing, I think, is hilarious. As well as the Waid writing, that's kind of hard to say. Waid writing, like the youth speech is still a little bit off for me, right? Because
do you know what? I think the one thing that stuck out to me is at one point, Bumblebee says that, or so someone, no, they're talking about Bumblebee, and No, that is Bumblebee. Sorry, I'm getting confused. So basically, Donna Troy's been whisked away by all her fans, and Bumblebee says to Garth, "You better be careful." And he says something. He's like, "No, I don't mean that. I mean all these horny fans that are around."
Yeah.
And I was like, that felt weird, having just one of the characters talking about everyone being horny.
Well, it's like this. Yeah, it says, "You better watch out for your lady, Garth." And he's like, "Yeah, she can take care of herself." I meant in a sea of good-looking, horny fans who do not ship you two. And that was the one I was like, oh man,
that felt a little bit like an older man's trying to sound hip.
Yeah. But you know, the stuff at the panels where everything is kind of overwhelming. And all of that.
The panel is Donna basically she gets dragged to this panel about her, and then the panel turns into being, is she like a hero or is she just this like was it Pixie Dream Girl? I think they said.
Manic Pixie Dream Girl, yeah. And people are taking sides and stuff, and she's trying to speak, and they're not letting her.
They're basically debating if she's actually a person or just some male fantasy, and she's just sitting there. It's very meta in a lot of ways, but it's this idea. I think the reason why it works and doesn't feel cheap is because yes, it is meta, but it also works in the context of if you become a celebrity or just a persona on the internet, and people start talking about you, you start to get talked about not as a person but as just a character in their lives. And I think it works in that context as well, and in the context of the universe as well. So that's that stuff's good. For me though, the stuff that I really liked here was Dick. He isn't there. He's with Batman. Yeah. And he's talking about how he understands why they're kind of drawn to the cheers and stuff, because he was in the circus. He kind of longs for the roar of the crowd. He remembers what that felt like. But what I really liked about this though is not only are we advancing that storyline, but later on when he eventually shows up to help save the day and lead them when they're in battle. I love that there's a nerd dressed as like in a really crappy Robin suit who's disappointed that Dick's not there early on. But when Robin shows up, he's like in the panel looking up at him like he's his idol. And I just thought it's like he doesn't say anything in that scene or that panel. He's just looking at him. But it made me laugh because it was like, okay, there's just like a nice through line. It's same as well when Roy is showing off with doing like tricks with the arrows, and Wally switches all his arrows around, so he ends up setting off the wrong thing. He covers all the fans in oil instead of setting off fireworks. Yeah. And there's just a random voice at the back of the crowd going, "Robin should keep you in line." And because Roy's been the one who's been like clashing with Robin constantly throughout this book so far, that really made me laugh. But the main plot, once it gets going though, is that there's actually a very creepy fan who thinks he's in love with Bumblebee, and shows up and is basically he's touching her arm. He's saying that he understands her. He's calling her doll. And when Wally tries to sort of interject to sort of like, help her get rid of him, he starts using powers to fight them. And he basically turns all the various collectibles and toys into large versions that start fighting the Titans. So there's like a large Donna Troy that's fighting the real Donna Troy. There's a Batmobile chasing down Wally, and it's somehow going just as fast as him because it's magic, I guess, is the answer to that.
And that's what he says. Yeah, so we get a clip of this guy. He's got like a long scarf, and he's like, it looks like practicing magic, looking at like runes and stuff on his computer before he leaves.
Yeah, see, when we first saw him, I thought he looked kind of like, is this young Toy Man? And the fact that they keep calling him like Toy Boy. So I was getting the impression maybe he is Toy Man, but Toy Man doesn't use magic for these things.
Toy Man doesn't use magic, and Toy Man's name is not Sherman. Right?
Yeah. So it was reminding me of Toy Man, but he's not Toy Man.
And I think that's the point, is because this is what we see where he'll go when we get to there. There's a subplot going on. But the fact that he's using magic and he's living with his mom, and she's like, "Don't forget to do whatever." He's like, "Yeah, whatever, mom. I'm going off." Right?
Let's be honest. He's an incel. That's what this character is. He's
yeah, and it's because of his actions with Bumblebee and all of that stuff. I thought that was like, despite being real creepy, what Waid was saying about like parasocial relationships and it going back into what Batman's trying to tell Robin about, you guys are out there too much. You gotta pull it back because you guys are heroes. You're not celebrities.
Yeah.
Like you have to do a job and stuff. So I really like how he tied that together.
And Batman,
this Toy Boy character.
Yeah, and Batman's worried about the secret identities, of course. But Dick says, yeah, but isn't it good to have us out there letting them know that we're there? So they know that we'll show up when they need help. Isn't that important too? And yeah, that's it's a classic debate between it's like a Batman Superman debate effectively.
Yep.
But yeah, when Dick shows up, he starts giving out orders, which make them win the fight, because he's like, no, you're focusing wrong. He's using his hands, so tie his hands together. He swaps people around in terms of who they're fighting. B gets to punch the guy because she's earned the punch, and gives him a harsh lesson. So there's a couple of epilogues here at the end where Dick is talking to in my head I keep calling him Hawk Boy, but was it Golden? It's
Golden Eagle, but yeah, I'm gonna call it. There's a Hawk Man, Hawk Woman, Hawk Girl. Why can't he be Hawk Boy?
He's Hawk Boy. That's effectively what he is, even though he doesn't use that name. But he points out that Dick is the only one who's not going home. Like it's almost like there's trouble at home, and he doesn't want to go back and face Batman. And Dick sort of like ends this scene like sitting down in the dark, and it's kind of sad. It's like, so the idea of this tension's building, which is a classic Teen Titans thing. This idea that he's eventually going to choose to break away and become Nightwing. So it does make me wonder: is Waid going to tell like his version of that story throughout the course of this book? He might.
Yeah, I think it would feel earned too, because we're seeing him constantly clash, and it is kind of that teenage where you clash with your parents, where you think you know everything. Right. But, as he proved here, Batman does have a point of all of this. And if they had listened to him from the beginning, they wouldn't be in some of the problems that they're in. But it's also reestablishing the whole, I forget what book it was from, but I think it was a retelling of that story where Dick's like, I'm tired of being the back end of Batman and Robin. Right. He wants to be Batman with Robin at a certain point, and that's that whole teenage wanting relevance in their own life. He wants a sense of agency, and so him telling that through here, like that panel of him sitting there in the dark by himself, right? Everyone else has gone home, but he's kind of dreading it. He doesn't want to go back and face Batman. And again, it's another very youthful type thing.
That makes me think of like when either someone doesn't want to go home either because their parents are abusive or because the parents are constantly fighting, so they don't want to be around it. Now obviously we know that's not exactly what's happening with him, but it conjured up images of that in my head because that's what it made me think of.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. The final epilogue is this shadowy figure showing up and freeing this villain from the issue.
Toy Boy.
Yeah, Toy Boy. And basically saying that he's inviting him to join the Terror Titans. Now, the end of the last issue did have like a figure in like the trees watching the Titans as they got on their jet. I'm not sure if that's meant to be the same character. There's this, but it probably is. The only reason why I'm doubting it is because here he's got a really smooth head, like he's bald, but in the last book he kind of had like, it was like he had hair in the silhouette. So I'm not sure if it's meant to be the same character, but
remember too, at the end of the first issue there was that henchman for Two-Face that also got picked up.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was the same kind of vibe as this one, because this guy looks terrified, right? Like, yes, he got freed, but whoever this person is, it seems like they have electrical, you would think electrical powers, right? From the lightning coming off of there. And it's like he tells him, you have potential, you're part of my team now, where he's not even giving him a choice.
Yeah,
he's just saying, I got you out of, that. So, but looking up, there has been a Terra Titans, I remember was it from the Johns run? Or it was around the Johns run, and that's where we got...
The idea of Terra Titans is not new, although when I looked up DC Wiki for something, it did note down that this character is new. This is a first appearance.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah. Of Toy Boy, yeah. So that's what I'm looking is, there was the original members were Clock King, Dreadbolt, Copperhead, Persuader, and Disruptor, right? And then of course Ravager, but that was part of a different story. But yeah, so I mean, this is something I'm sure wholly new, but the fact that with the electrical powers, it does make me think this is Dreadbolt in some form coming in. So, but yeah, no, I thoroughly enjoyed this. Lupacino's art too is fantastic. The expressions, we talked about the distraught Robin, everything before the bad stuff happens at the con, kind of the goofy looks on all the Titans' faces. Like that scene where Wally switches the arrows on Roy, just his kind of look away. Hey, I'm not doing anything wrong.
Yeah, which comes back up during the fight as well, because he goes to get another arrow and he ends up using like a mop arrow. Why do you even have a mop arrow anyway? Why is that in there?
Yeah.
But that's a good comedy beat during the action, and I really like the scene where Dick's talking to Batman, and then he sort of imagines he's in the circus again for a minute and does like a jump, because it just sort of like really flowed nicely and sort of gave this idea that he's living in a memory right now as he's talking to him, and just a way that felt very natural. Like I can almost imagine a scene in a movie where the character is just walking through the room and it turns into the memory, and then they walk back out of it as they're finishing their story. It just gave me that kind of vibe, which is kind of cool. But yeah, they are really good. Nothing to complain about. It's a solid issue. I've been enjoying Teen Titans. I'm enjoying what it's building to, because it's had kind of a clear this conflict with like Dick clashing with the others because how he does things differently as a leader, because of how he's been trained by Batman. That sort of push and pull has been very well focused on, and then obviously you've also got this building of the Terror Titans now, kind of sort of accumulating.
Well, and now that you say that too, it is kind of like, it's almost like he took the lessons here and applied them to the new Teen Titans when he becomes Nightwing, right? When Starfire and Beast Boy, Cyborg, Raven, they all show up. It's like, I learned from the first go around, and this is how he can do things different. So I like that Waid's playing a little bit with that as well.
Yeah, that's true. He's not technically he's not meant to become Nightwing until after the new Teen Titans are a thing. So maybe Waid won't do that version of the story. But then again, if he's
he's played with the timeline so much.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe he'll still.
As long as he
it.
executes it well, I don't mind.
Yeah, it wouldn't bother me that much. But it is worth noting that technically that didn't happen until the second incarnation of the Teen Titans. So what are you giving World's Finest Teen Titans issue 3?
I'm gonna give this an 8.5.
Yeah, I can agree with that. 8.5 sounds good to me.